Mud squelched under Nora's boots as she crouched behind a fallen log. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Somewhere to her left, branches snapped. Someone was getting close. This was supposed to be fun. 3 days in the wilderness with her classmates, pretending to survive with nothing but basic supplies and their wits. The annual game that every sophomore at Lincoln High talked about for months. The test that separated the kids who could handle pressure from those who couldn't. Nora peeked over the log. Riley was 20 feet away, trying to stay quiet but failing miserably. Her best friend had always been better with computers than camping. Behind Riley, David and Amelia followed, both looking annoyed at the noise. "We need to find the checkpoint," David whispered too loudly. "We're losing points." Nora waved them over. When they reached her position, she put a finger to her lips and pointed east. Through the trees, she could see the orange marker that meant supplies and shelter for the night. They moved as a group. The Rocky Mountain Preserve stretched around them in every direction, beautiful and wild. Pine trees towered overhead. Birds called from hidden branches. A stream bubbled somewhere nearby. Everything seemed perfect. Then the sky changed. It started as a shimmer, like heat waves on summer pavement. Nora stopped walking and stared up. The blue sky rippled. Colors she had no names for flickered at the edges of her vision. "What is that?" Amelia asked, her voice tight with fear. The shimmer grew brighter. Nora's phone buzzed in her pocket, then went dead. Her digital compass spun wildly before the screen turned black. Around her, everyone's devices made the same dying sounds. "Teacher station," Riley said, already running. "We need to find Ms. Peterson." They ran through the forest. Branches whipped at Nora's face. Her backpack bounced against her spine. The light above grew so bright she had to squint. Then everything went white. When Nora opened her eyes, she was on her back in the dirt. Her ears rang. Her head ached. She sat up slowly, checking herself for injuries. Nothing broken, just bruised and confused. Riley groaned nearby. David was already on his feet, helping Amelia stand. They all looked shaken but unhurt. "What happened?" Riley asked. Nora looked around. They were still in a forest, still surrounded by pine trees and rocks and mountain terrain. But something felt wrong. The air tasted different. The light seemed off by degrees she couldn't name. "Come on," she said, standing and brushing dirt from her pants. "We need to find the teachers." The teacher station was a 10-minute walk from their last position. Nora had memorized the map before the game started. Her grandfather had taught her to always know where safety was, even when pretending to be lost. But when they reached the clearing where 3 teachers should have been monitoring the game, they found nothing. Not nothing. Worse than nothing. The equipment was there. The tents stood exactly as they should. Chairs sat in a circle around a cold fire pit. Tablets lay on a table, screens dark. Coffee cups waited beside battery packs and emergency radios. But no people. "Ms. Peterson?" Riley called. "Mr. Chun?" "Anyone?" Silence answered. Even the forest seemed quieter than it should be. David picked up one of the tablets and pressed the power button. Nothing happened. He tried another. Same result. Every piece of technology in the camp was completely dead. "This doesn't make sense," Amelia said. She was the smartest kid in their grade, the one who understood how things worked. The batteries are supposed to last for days. And why would all the teachers leave at once? Nora walked to the edge of the clearing. Through the trees, she could see more of the forest stretching away. It looked right. It looked exactly like the Rocky Mountain Preserve where they'd started the game. But her instinct screamed that something was horribly wrong. "David," she said quietly, "do you still have your scanner?" He pulled a small device from his pocket. It was old technology, the kind that didn't rely on networks or satellites. Just basic atmospheric readings and compass functions. His father had given it to him for the game. David turned it on. The screen flickered, then stabilized. He stared at it for a long moment. "That can't be right," he muttered. "What?" Nora moved to his side. He showed her the screen. The atmospheric composition readings made no sense. Oxygen levels were slightly higher than Earth normal. Nitrogen ratios were off. There were trace elements that shouldn't exist in Earth's atmosphere. "The device must be broken," Riley said, looking over their shoulders. "Or we're not on Earth anymore," Amelia whispered. They all went silent. Nora looked up at the sky. It was blue, but now that she paid attention, it was the wrong shade of blue. Too dark, too deep, and the sun hung in a position that made her skin crawl because she knew the time and she knew the season, and the sun was absolutely in the wrong part of the sky. "That's impossible," David said, but his voice shook. "We can't just leave Earth. That's not how anything works." Riley sat down hard on the ground. "The game. We were in the game, and then the light, and now we're here. Wherever here is." Nora's mind raced. Her grandfather had taught her that panic killed faster than any predator. When lost, stop and think. Assess the situation. Make a plan. "We need information," she said, forcing her voice to stay calm. "We need to figure out where we are and how we got here. And how to get back," Riley added quietly. Amelia pointed to the north. "I saw lights last night. City lights, I think. Where our town should be. Then we go there," Nora decided. "We find people. We find answers." They packed supplies from the abandoned teacher station. Water bottles, energy bars, a first aid kit, thermal blankets, everything that might keep them alive. As the sun began to set in its wrong position, they started walking toward where the city lights should be. None of them noticed that the trees were slightly wrong, that the bark patterns didn't quite match Earth trees, that the bird calls echoing through the forest were from birds that had never lived on their planet. By the time they saw the city on the horizon, glowing with light that hurt to look at, Nora was beginning to understand that the game had changed into something far more dangerous. And in the darkness between them and those lights, something massive moved through the trees. Something that had been waiting a very long time for humans to return. The road appeared after 2 hours of walking through darkness. At first, Nora thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. Then Riley grabbed her arm and pointed. "Is that glowing?" It was. The road surface gave off a faint blue-green light, just enough to see by. The material looked like asphalt, but felt different under their feet. Smoother, almost warm. "This isn't Earth technology," Amelia said, kneeling to touch it. "This is something else." David checked his scanner again. "We're definitely not home. Gravity is 0.03 higher than Earth standard. The day length is off too. We've been walking for what feels like 2 hours, but my watch says 3. Longer days," Riley said quietly. "Different atmosphere. Glowing roads. Where are we?" Nora didn't answer. She was looking at the city ahead. It rose from a landscape like something from a dream or a nightmare. Towers stretched impossibly high, their peaks lost in clouds. Lights blazed from windows in patterns that made her head hurt to follow. The architecture was wrong in ways she couldn't explain. Buildings too tall and too wide. Angles that seemed to shift when she looked away. They followed the road. With each step, the wrongness grew more obvious. Signs stood at regular intervals, but the writing was English mixed with symbols Nora had never seen. Street markers listed distances in kilometers, but the numbers made no sense for the terrain they'd covered. "Look," David said, pointing to a sign. "Population, 14 million. What city has 14 million people in the Rocky Mountains?" "No city," Amelia answered. "Not on our Earth anyway." The outskirts of the city began with houses. Normal suburban houses with yards and driveways and mailboxes. But they were all empty. Doors stood open. Cars sat in driveways with keys still in the ignition. Lights were on in some windows, casting empty rooms in harsh illumination. Nora pushed open the door of the nearest house. Inside, everything looked lived in. A jacket hung on a coat rack. Dishes sat in the sink, half-washed. A holographic display flickered in the living room, showing what looked like a news program frozen mid-broadcast. "They left in a hurry," Riley said, her voice echoing in the empty house. "Where they were taken," David muttered. They moved deeper into the city. Every street was the same. Empty, but not destroyed. Clean, but abandoned. Like everyone had simply vanished between one breath and the next. The city center held the largest buildings. One looked like a government complex, all glass and steel rising in spiral patterns. Amelia found the door unlocked, and they went inside. The main hall was vast and silent. Their footsteps echoed on marble floors. Desks stood in neat rows, their surfaces covered in dust, but otherwise untouched. Holographic screens hung in the air, powered down, but still visible as faint outlines. There, Amelia said, pointing to a large terminal near the back wall. That looks like a central database. It took her 20 minutes to get it working. The power systems were still active, just sleeping. When the screen lit up, it bathed them all in blue light. The interface was in English. Standard keyboard and touch controls. Familiar, but advanced, like using a smartphone from the future. Amelia's fingers flew across the controls. David helped, his engineering knowledge making sense of the system architecture. Riley and Nora stood watch, though they had no idea what they were watching for. "Oh no," Amelia whispered. Nora moved to her side. "What did you find?" The screen showed a welcome message. "Welcome to New Terra Central Database. Established 2891. Current population, 14,203,567. Status, evacuation complete. 2891, Riley said slowly. "That's over 700 years from now." David's hands shook as he pulled up more files. "It's not just the future. It's a colony. A human colony on another planet. We're not on Earth. We're on New Terra. And we're in the year 2903. The room spun around Nora. She grabbed the edge of the desk to steady herself. Time travel. Impossible. But the evidence was right in front of her. Amelia opened more files. Colony records. Population data. Development reports. New Terra had been humanity's 23rd extrasolar colony, founded in 2891 with the first wave of settlers. 12 years of growth and prosperity. Then something went wrong. The evacuation records were chaotic. Millions of people moving to ships in a matter of weeks. Emergency protocols. Panic. Fear. But the reason for the evacuation was corrupted. Every file they tried to open showed the same message. Data lost. The silence. The silence, Riley repeated. "What does that mean?" Nora searched the database for any mention of a word. Most files were corrupted or locked behind security they couldn't break. But she found one partial log from someone named Dr. Patricia Ward. The text was fragmentary, but terrifying. The silence came from below. "We didn't know. We didn't understand while we were waking. They're not natural. We made them. Our mistake. Our curse. We made them." David read over her shoulder. "Made what?" Amelia pulled up another file. This one contained images. Grainy security footage from the final days of evacuation. Nora watched people running through streets. Soldiers firing weapons at something the camera couldn't quite capture. Massive shapes moving in shadows. Then the footage cut to static. "They evacuated everyone," Riley said. 14 million people. They abandoned an entire world because of something called the silence. Nora found one more file. A memorial database. Names of the dead. Thousands of them. People who didn't make it to the ships. She scrolled through the list, her blood running cold as she recognized names. Hayes, Cooper, Grant, Rhodes, her descendants, Riley's descendants. David's and Amelia's families, 700 years in the future, had come to this world, had lived here, had died here. "This is our future," Nora said quietly. Or it was, "Our bloodlines came here, built this city, raised families, and then something went so wrong that they had to run." The lights in the building suddenly blazed to full brightness. All around them, screens activated. Holographic displays flickered to life. A mechanical voice echoed through the empty halls. "Warning. Quarantine zone active. Unauthorized presence detected. Evacuate immediately. Repeat. Evacuate immediately." "What did we do?" Amelia asked, but Nora already knew. Their presence had triggered something. Some automated system that had been waiting in the dark for 700 years. And in the distance, from somewhere deep in the city, came a sound that made Nora's skin crawl. Metal dragging on stone. Getting closer. The silence hadn't left when the humans did. It had been waiting, and now it knew they were here. Running through an empty city while something hunted them was worse than any nightmare Nora had ever experienced. The sound followed them through the streets. That horrible scraping of metal on stone, getting closer with each heartbeat. Riley stumbled and Nora caught her arm, keeping her upright. David led the way, his scanner somehow tracking a path through the maze of buildings. Amelia ran beside him, her face pale but determined. There, David gasped, pointing to a large structure ahead. School building. Might have shelter. The building rose 5 stories tall, its design unmistakably educational. Wide steps led to double doors marked with symbols Nora recognized as universal education icons. They sprinted up the steps and through the entrance. Inside, emergency lighting cast everything in red. Lockers lined hallways that stretched in 4 directions. Classroom doors stood open, revealing desks and chairs sized for teenagers. Holographic boards still displayed lessons frozen mid-sentence. Basement, Nora said. Schools always have basements. Emergency shelters. They found stairs and descended. The sound behind them grew muffled but didn't stop. Whatever was hunting them had entered the building. The basement was a maze of storage rooms and maintenance corridors. David's scanner picked up a strong electromagnetic signature ahead. They followed it to a reinforced door with a keypad lock. Stand back, Amelia said. She pulled wires from her backpack and attached them to the keypad. Her fingers worked fast, bypassing the security. The door clicked open. Inside was a shelter, a real emergency bunker designed to keep people safe. Supplies lined the walls. Water tanks, food rations, medical kits, and against the far wall, a communication device still humming with power. David sealed the door behind them. The sound of metal scraping on stone faded to nothing. For the first time in hours, they could breathe. What were those things? Riley asked, her voice shaking. The silence, Nora said. It has to be whatever made 14 million people abandon this world. Amelia had already moved to the communication device. It was old technology by the colony's standards, but still functional. As she worked, Nora explored the rest of the shelter. She found personal logs, data chips containing recorded messages. Most were corrupted, but one was intact. The label read, Dr. Patricia Ward, Final Documentation Project. Nora activated the recording. A woman's face appeared on the small screen. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed with grief and determination. This is Dr. Patricia Ward, xenobiologist, New Terra Colony. If anyone is watching this, it means humans have returned to this world. You need to leave. Immediately, the recording jumped forward, showing Dr. Ward in different locations. Always alone, always exhausted. The silence isn't a plague or a weapon. It's something we created by accident. When we terraformed New Terra, we didn't realize the planet held dormant spores. Microscopic organisms that had been frozen in the deep soil for millions of years. The image showed microscope footage. Tiny organisms that looked almost beautiful, spiraling and dancing. Our terraforming woke them up, gave them warmth, water, nutrients. They infected the local ecosystem first. Then they began to change, to adapt, to merge with whatever they touched. New footage showed creatures that made Nora's stomach turn. Part organic, part mechanical, part something else entirely. They moved in ways that hurt to watch. The colonists called them the Silence because they absorb sound, create dead zones where nothing can be heard. They're not evil. They're not even predators in the traditional sense. They're just trying to understand, to connect. But their biology is incompatible with ours. Their touch is fatal to humans. Dr. Ward's face reappeared, older now, more worn. We evacuated everyone we could, left New Terra under permanent quarantine. But I stayed. Someone had to document everything, to make sure future humans would know what happened, to ensure the Silence never escaped to infect other worlds. The recording showed Dr. Ward sealing herself in various bunkers, moving through the empty city, taking samples and recording data. If you're watching this, you've broken quarantine. The Silence will have detected your technology, your electromagnetic signatures. They'll be drawn to you, not because they're hunting, but because they want to understand what you are. Nora felt ice in her veins. You need to leave before they learn too much, before they figure out how to follow you back to wherever you came from. The Silence is intelligent, evolving. Every human who stays teaches them more about us. The recording jumped again. Dr. Ward looked directly at the camera. There's a stasis pod in the deep shelter below this school. I'm going into suspension. If humans return and need help, wake me. But know this, I'm infected. Asymptomatic carrier. The spores are in my blood. I'm the key to understanding them. But I'm also incredibly dangerous. The screen went dark. Nora stood frozen. Behind her, she heard Amelia gasp. The communication device just received a message. Amelia said, automated, from something called Galactic Quarantine Enforcement. She activated the playback. A cold, mechanical voice filled the shelter. New Terra Station, unauthorized signals detected. Quarantine breach confirmed. Sterilization protocol will activate in 72 hours. All remaining personnel must evacuate before planet-wide cleansing begins. Silence filled the shelter. Not the silence that hunted them, but the silence of absolute terror. They're going to destroy the planet, Riley whispered. We have 3 days. And no way home, David added. Nora looked at her team. Scared teenagers who had signed up for a school game and ended up 700 years in the future on a quarantined world. They had 3 days before the planet was sterilized. The silence hunted them above. And somewhere in this building, Dr. Patricia Ward slept in a stasis pod, infected with the very thing that had destroyed a colony. We need to think, Nora said, forcing calm into her voice. Dr. Ward stayed alive for a reason. She knew things. If we can wake her safely, she might know how to get us home. Or we might release the spores and doom all of humanity, Amelia said. Then we find another way, Nora replied. But we don't give up. Not yet. Through the sealed door, they heard the sound again. Metal on stone. The silence had found their shelter. And outside, a timer counted down to their deaths. 72 hours until sterilization. 72 hours to find a way home. Or 72 hours to live. Nora found the stasis pod 3 levels below the main shelter. It sat in a small room with walls covered in notes and diagrams. Dr. Ward's handwriting covered every surface, equations and observations written in desperate haste. The pod itself looked like a metal coffin with a glass window. Through the frost-covered glass, Nora could see a woman's face. Peaceful, preserved, waiting. Is she really alive in there? Riley asked, standing at the doorway. According to the readings, yes, Amelia said. She had brought scanning equipment from the shelter above. Vital signs are minimal but present. She's been in suspension for over 700 years. David examined the pod's control panel. We could wake her. The system is designed for it. But if Dr. Ward was right about being infected, we risk spreading the silence. Nora read the notes on the walls. Dr. Ward had spent years studying the silence, understanding their biology, their behavior, their tragic origin as simple organisms that humanity had accidentally transformed into something dangerous. One section of notes caught her attention. The silence seeks connection, not destruction. They respond to electromagnetic fields. Avoid them by creating false signals. Lead them away from true targets. She was trying to help us, Nora said quietly. Even knowing she'd be asleep when we arrived, she left instructions. She read more. The spores cannot survive outside specific atmospheric conditions. Earth's atmosphere is too dry, too cold. Unless deliberately cultured, the silence would die within hours of reaching Earth. Look at this, Nora said, pointing to the notes. The silence can't survive on Earth. The infection can't spread unless someone deliberately tries to spread it. Amelia moved closer, reading the calculations. Dr. Ward is right. The spores need high humidity and specific temperature ranges. Earth doesn't have the right conditions naturally. So we can wake her safely, Riley said, as long as we don't take her back to Earth with us. If we can even get back to Earth, David muttered. He had spent the last hour analyzing the energy readings from when they were transported. I still don't understand how we got here. Some kind of quantum portal, but the signature is unlike anything I've seen. Nora made a decision. We wake her, but we do it carefully. She stays in a sealed environment. We communicate through barriers. If she can teach us how to reverse the portal, we don't need direct contact. They prepared for hours, creating a sealed chamber using emergency equipment from the shelter, setting up communication systems. making sure that if anything went wrong, they could contain it. When everything was ready, Amelia activated the revival sequence. The pod hummed. Frost melted from the glass. Inside, Dr. Ward's eyes moved beneath her eyelids. Her chest began to rise and fall with deeper breaths. It took 3 hours for her to wake fully. When her eyes finally opened, she stared at the ceiling in confusion. Then memory returned, and her expression shifted to grief. "They're all gone," she whispered through the communication speaker. "Everyone I knew, everyone I loved, all gone." Nora spoke gently through the microphone. "Dr. Ward, we need your help. We're from the past, from 2147. We were brought here by accident." Dr. Ward sat up slowly in the sealed chamber. She looked at them through the glass barrier. 4 teenagers in hiking gear, terrified and desperate. "You're children," she said, her voice breaking. "Just children. And you're trapped here. We have 48 hours before the planet is sterilized," Nora explained. "We need to know how to get home." Dr. Ward's expression changed, became focused, professional. "The portal that brought you here. Describe it." David explained everything. The shimmer in the sky, the white light, the sensation of being pulled between locations. The energy signature his scanner had recorded. Dr. Ward listened carefully. Then she nodded. "The silence did this. They've evolved, learned to manipulate quantum fields. They created the portal to bring you here." "Why?" Riley asked. "Because they want to leave," Dr. Ward said. "They're intelligent, trapped on this world by the quarantine. They've been searching for a way off-world for 700 years. You represent that chance." Nora felt her blood run cold. "They want to use us to escape to Earth." "Not just Earth," Dr. Ward said. "Earth in 2147, before the colony ships leave, before New Terra is founded. They could infect humanity 750 years before we even come to this world. Rewrite history." The implications were staggering. If the silence reached Earth in their time, it could change everything. Prevent the colonies. Kill billions. Destroy humanity's future among the stars. "We can't go home," Amelia said quietly. "We can't risk leading them back." Dr. Ward moved to a terminal in her sealed chamber. "There might be a way. The portal technology exists in the colony records. I can teach you to build a reverse portal, but it requires a quantum anchor. Someone has to stay behind to collapse the portal after you leave, to ensure nothing follows you through." The shelter went silent. "Stay behind," Riley said. "Stay here to die when the planet is sterilized. It's the only way to guarantee the silence doesn't follow," Dr. Ward said. "Someone has to be the anchor, to hold the portal open just long enough for the others to pass through, then destroy it completely." Nora looked at her team. David was pale but thoughtful. Amelia was calculating something on her tablet. Riley was crying silently. "There has to be another way," Nora said. "There isn't," Dr. Ward replied. "I've had 750 years to think about this. If humans ever returned, this was always going to be the cost. The portal can only collapse from this side. Someone stays, someone sacrifices, or the silence escapes and humanity dies." Before anyone could argue, alarms screamed through the shelter. Red lights flashed. The door to the upper levels buckled inward. The silence had broken through. "They're learning faster than I thought," Dr. Ward said. "They know what you represent now. They try to take you alive, use you as vessels to reach your time." Metal screeched. The door tore away from its frame. Through the opening, Nora saw shapes moving in the darkness. Part machine, part organic horror, part something that defied understanding. The silence had come for them, and someone was going to have to choose to die. Nora grabbed Riley's arm and pulled her toward the emergency exit. David threw a metal storage container at the creatures pushing through the broken door. It bought them seconds, nothing more. They ran through corridors lit by emergency lights. Behind them, the silence followed. Not running, not hurrying, just moving with terrible patience, knowing their prey had nowhere to go. The lab. Dr. Ward's voice came through Nora's emergency radio. "Third door on your left. I can seal it remotely." They burst into the laboratory. The moment they cleared the threshold, heavy doors slammed shut. Magnetic locks engaged with a sound like thunder. The lab was filled with equipment. workbenches covered in tools and components, holographic displays showing complex equations, and in the center, a partially built device that looked like a metal ring surrounded by power cores. The portal generator, Dr. Ward's voice explained. I started building it years ago, hoping someone would come. It's 80% complete. Amelia moved to the device immediately. Her eyes scanned the construction, her mind already understanding the design. I can finish this. David can help. But we need time. Outside the sealed doors, metal scraped against metal. The silence were testing the barriers. Learning. Adapting. How much time? Nora asked. 6 hours, Amelia said. Maybe 8. Nora looked at the doors. They were strong, but the silence had broken through stronger barriers. We don't have 8 hours. Then we make time, David said. He was already working on something at a nearby workbench. Dr. Ward's notes mentioned creating false electromagnetic signatures. Decoys. What if we build devices that broadcast the same energy signature we do? Lead the silence away from the lab. Riley wiped her eyes. She had been crying, but now her expression was determined. I can help. I'm good with electronics. We build decoys, place them around the school, give Amelia and David time to work. It was a plan, a desperate one, but better than nothing. They worked in controlled chaos. Amelia and David focused on the portal generator, connecting power cores and calibrating quantum field emitters. Riley and Nora assembled crude electromagnetic broadcasters from spare parts and old equipment. Dr. Ward guided them through the radio, her voice calm and precise. She had been alone for 750 years, but her mind was still sharp, still focused on saving humanity. Nora, Dr. Ward said quietly during a brief pause, I need to tell you something. Nora moved away from the others, speaking softly into the radio. What is it? I've been monitoring David. His biosigns are wrong. He's been infected. Nora's heart stopped. What? During your first encounter with the silence. He has a scratch on his left forearm. I can see it on the security cameras. The spores entered his bloodstream then. He's asymptomatic now, but he's a carrier. Nora looked at David across the lab. He was working intently, trying to save them all, and he was infected with the very thing they were trying to escape. Does he know? Nora asked. I don't think so, Dr. Ward said. But he suspects. I can see in how carefully he's avoiding contact with the others. Nora felt tears burning her eyes. David was her friend. Annoying sometimes, competitive always, but good. He didn't deserve this. If we take him back to Earth, the spores will die in our atmosphere, Nora said. You wrote that in your notes. Yes, Dr. Ward agreed. But during the portal transit, he could infect the others in the enclosed quantum field. The spores could survive long enough to spread. It's a small risk, but it exists. Nora understood what Dr. Ward wasn't saying. David was the logical choice to stay behind. He was already infected, already doomed in a sense. His sacrifice would mean something. No, Nora said firmly. We all go home, or none of us do. The decoys were ready. Nora and Riley placed them throughout the school, setting timers to activate in sequence. When the first one switched on, they heard the silence respond immediately. The creatures moved away from the lab, drawn to the false signals. It bought them 4 hours. 4 hours of frantic work. Amelia's hands flew across control panels. David welded connections and calibrated emitters. Riley monitored the decoys, adjusting their signals to keep the silence occupied. Nora stood watch, listening to the sounds of creatures hunting through the school. And she thought about Dr. Ward's words, about sacrifice, about the cost of survival. Finally, Amelia stepped back from the portal generator. It's done. The portal is ready. The device hummed with power. The metal ring glowed with energy that made Nora's teeth ache. Inside the ring, space itself seemed to bend and twist. I've locked the coordinates to your original location, Amelia explained. The moment you left Earth. You'll arrive exactly when you departed. No time will have passed. What about the anchor? Riley asked the question they'd all been avoiding. Dr. Ward's voice came through the radio. I'll do it. I'm already infected. Already past my time. Let me do this one last thing for humanity. No, David said. He rolled up his sleeve, showing the scratch on his forearm. I'm infected too. I should be the one who stays. Everyone went silent. David looked at Nora. I figured it out hours ago. I'm a carrier. I can't go back. But I can make sure none of you get infected. I can hold the portal. Nora opened her mouth to argue, but David cut her off. You're the leader, Nora. You need to lead them home. Riley and Amelia need to survive. And I need to do something that matters. Tears ran down Riley's face. Amelia was shaking her head, refusing to accept it. But Nora saw the truth in David's eyes. He had already made his choice. Before anyone could stop her, Dr. Ward's voice rang out. Override code Alpha 77. Initiating emergency chamber release. The sealed chamber opened. Dr. Ward stepped out, no longer contained. The infected scientist who had sacrificed 750 years of her life moved toward the portal controls. No child dies today, she said. Not while I still breathe. She placed her hand on a panel. Energy surged through the laboratory. Every light blazed. Every screen activated. The electromagnetic pulse was massive, overwhelming. Every silence entity in the city turned toward them. And Dr. Ward smiled. Run, she said. All of you. Now. The portal blazed like a star. Energy crackled around the metal ring, bending reality itself. Through the opening, Nora could see trees and sky. Earth. Home. Safety. But Dr. Ward stood between them and escape. The silence poured into the laboratory. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Drawn by the massive electromagnetic pulse Dr. Ward had created. They moved like a wave of living metal and corrupted flesh. Go, Dr. Ward shouted. I'll hold them. David grabbed Nora's arm. She's right. We have to go now. Riley was already moving toward the portal. Amelia hesitated, looking back at Dr. Ward with anguish in her eyes. Dr. Ward smiled. After 750 years alone, after sacrificing everything, she looked peaceful. I've been waiting so long to save someone. Let me have this. The silence reached her. Their touch would kill a normal human instantly. But Dr. Ward was different. Infected. Changed. When they touched her, they paused. Confused. She was one of them, in a way. Their biology recognized her as hybrid. Neither fully human nor fully silence. And that confusion bought precious seconds. Nora ran for the portal. David pushed her forward. Riley had already passed through, vanishing into the light. Amelia dove after her. Nora turned back at the threshold. David, come on. He was right behind her, reaching for the portal. Then he stopped. His hand went to his infected arm. His eyes met Nora's. I can't, he said. I'm infected. I'll contaminate you in the quantum field. Dr. Ward said the spores would die on Earth. Nora shouted over the roar of energy. She said, small risk, David replied. I won't risk you. Any of you. He turned back to Dr. Ward. The scientist was surrounded by silence entities, but they weren't attacking. They were trying to understand. To communicate with this strange hybrid creature that shared their nature but retained human consciousness. Dr. Ward looked at David. Something passed between them. Understanding. Acceptance. Go, Nora, David said softly. Tell my parents I love them. Tell everyone we were brave. The silence broke through their confusion. They surged forward. Dr. Ward threw herself at the portal controls, her infected blood allowing her to interface directly with the quantum technology. Now, Nora, she screamed. Before I lose control. David grabbed a metal beam and swung it at the nearest silence creature, driving it back. Buying one more second. Nora felt hands grab her from behind. Riley and Amelia had reached back through the portal, pulling her toward home. The last thing she saw was Dr. Ward and David standing together, facing an army of monsters. Then the portal collapsed in a blaze of light that burned away everything. Nora hit forest floor hard. Pine needles pressed against her face. She could smell Earth. Real Earth. Home. Riley and Amelia lay beside her, gasping and crying. Around them, the VR game boundaries shimmered. Normal. Untouched. Like nothing had happened. A voice called from nearby. Team 7, you've been gone for 3 minutes. Everything okay? Their teacher, Ms. Peterson, stood 20 feet away with a tablet and a concerned expression. 3 minutes. They'd been gone for 3 days on New Terra. But on Earth, only 3 minutes had passed. "We're fine," Nora managed to say. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. They collected their supplies, finished the game, returned to school. Everything continued as if the universe hadn't just shown them humanity's future and required the death of two good people to survive. That night, Nora lay in her bed, unable to sleep. She kept seeing Dr. Ward smile, David's determined expression, the silent creatures that were really just victims of humanity's carelessness. She got up and went to her desk, started writing everything that had happened, every detail she could remember. Riley called, then Amelia. They did the same, documenting the truth. Over the next weeks, they compared notes, built a complete record of New Terra, the silence, Dr. Ward's research, everything. "What do we do with this?" Riley asked during one of their secret meetings. "We prepare humanity," Nora said. "We make sure that when we found New Terra in 744 years, we do it right. We don't make the same mistakes." They started small. Anonymous posts on scientific forums about terraforming dangers. Papers submitted under fake names about the importance of checking for dormant organisms before colonizing planets. They were teenagers. No one took them seriously, but they kept trying. Then, 6 months after their return, Nora noticed something wrong. She was faster than before, stronger. Her senses were sharper. She could feel electromagnetic fields around electronics. She checked her wrist where she'd been grabbed by a silence entity during their escape. There was a mark, faint but present, just like the one David had shown them. She was infected, but she wasn't dying. The spores had adapted to Earth's atmosphere, changed by their brief exposure to her biology during the quantum transit. They weren't killing her. They were changing her, slowly, carefully, making her into something new. Nora spent a year terrified, waiting to become a monster. But it never happened. Instead, she became stronger, smarter, more aware. The infection wasn't destroying her humanity. It was enhancing it. She went to Riley and Amelia. Show them the mark. Expected fear or rejection. Instead, Amelia started researching. Riley started documenting. And together they realized the truth. The silence wasn't a plague. It was evolution. Humanity's next step, but only if done right. Only if understood and controlled. Nora made a decision. She would use her infection, study it, master it, and when humanity was ready, when the science existed to do it safely, she would share what she'd learned. She called their group the Ward Foundation, after the woman who'd saved them. Their mission was simple: ensure that 700 years from now, when humans founded New Terra, they would do it right. They would arrive already compatible with spores. The merger would be peaceful, intentional, beautiful. The silence wouldn't be monsters. They would be partners. The next chapter in human evolution. 50 years later, Nora stood in a laboratory. She was 65 now. Her infection had kept her healthy, strong, alive far longer than normal humans. Her children carried the refined version of the spores. Beneficial traits without the dangers. She looked at a photo from high school. 4 teenagers in survival gear. David was in the picture, smiling. She touched his face gently. "We did it, David," she whispered. "We're changing the future, not by preventing it, but by preparing for it." On her desk, a news broadcast played. Scientists announcing breakthroughs in human genetic enhancement. Nora's work, filtered through decades of careful research and public preparation. In 694 years, humanity would found New Terra. But this time, they would be ready. The silence would become their greatest achievement, not their worst nightmare. A school game had gone wrong. A girl had survived a dead world, and she'd spent her life making sure that dead world would one day live again. Not through violence, not through fear, but through understanding, patience, and the very human ability to turn tragedy into hope. The girl who survived became the woman who saved humanity, and her story would echo through 700 years of history, changing everything.